Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Total Bases Express Show. I am your host, Austin Spiro. Thank you for joining us for episode 9 of the podcast. Seems like just yesterday we started this podcast. We're almost 2 handfuls of episodes in here. So thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you guys for making this a successful show as I venture out and do my own thing on the Total Bases podcast. This is a weekend version of the Total Bases Express Show. Usually I'm on Thursdays, but unfortunately life circumstances happen. And I'll just tell you what happened. I got a flat tire and then my battery died. And so I couldn't get home. And then I had to go fix my car. So, that's always fun. You never quite know when something will happen. But luckily we're here. We're going to make it up to you guys. The show must go on. And I'm going to get you the day before the Total Bases podcast with Felipe and Sean. They'll be on tomorrow. So let's get going today. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about the World Series. This was supposed to be a World Series preview show. But since the World Series is already being played, we're going to still kind of make it a World Series preview show, but also talk about game 1. But the main thing I think I'm going to talk about today is some of the awards that have been announced, or some of the award nominees that have been announced, and who I think should be awarded all of these awards. We are live here on Baseball Life on Facebook, one of the best, or if not the best, Facebook group around, certainly the best baseball Facebook group around. If you're not in it, go ahead and tune in and log in. You got a lot of people like my guy Jacob Moses, who is the host of the Step Back podcast. He's in the comments already, and I've got Angel Morales watching. Thank you, Angel, for coming on. He's one of the players in our Total Bases Champions League. Made a run at it at the end of the year. Unfortunately didn't win. I didn't win either. I'm not talking smack. I didn't win either. Felipe did. But let's get going with the awards talk here. We'll start with that and then we'll end with the World Series. So three different awards have been announced. The nominees have been announced for all these awards. We have the Silver Slugger, we have the Hank Aaron Award, and we have the Gold Glove Award. I'm going to talk about the Silver Slugger first. So what is the Silver Slugger Award? For those of you that are maybe new to baseball, not quite sure what the Silver Slugger Award is, the Silver Slugger Award is an award that where the MLB hands out to the best offensive player for each position in each league. So we will have, a total of 9 positions plus the designated hitter, plus we will have 11 Silver Sluggers from each league, the AL and the NL. Those nominees have been announced. I'm going to give the rundown of each position and who is in it and where we're going to be on each league and who I think is going to win, or who I think should win, I should say. Who I think should win and who probably will win are, for some of these guys are probably, or for some of these positions are probably 2 different people. But nonetheless, we're going to give it a shot here. I always try to be honest, and then I always try to think what is going to happen. Let's get going with this. First of all, the Silver Slugger for first base. At the AL nominees are Nathaniel Lowe, however you pronounce it. I can never, because I think it's Lowe, because you have Brandon Lowe, I think, of the Rays. So you have Nathaniel Lowe of the Rangers, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. of the Blue Jays, you have Jose Abreu of the White Sox, and you have Anthony Rizzo of the Yankees. So a lot of my research went into what I saw and the statistics that I saw on Fangraphs and Baseball Reference and websites of that nature. I'm going to be very honest with you. At first, I was looking at this list and I thought, oh, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., that's easy. Right? This has got to be easy. Vlad Guerrero is the big up-and-coming first baseman. He kind of had a little bit of an off season, but he also had an otherworldly MVP-like candidate season. So a lot of people thought last year he should have won the MVP. So obviously, it should have been very obvious that, the Silver Slugger is going to go to Vlad Guerrero. But when you look at the stats here for offensive first baseman, really, it's closer than I would have thought it would have been, right? So it's I don't know how to put this, because I feel like we're gonna get right off to a weird take right at the beginning here, is that I don't think, with what I'm looking at here, that Vlad Guerrero really deserves the Silver Slugger for first baseman. There were other Vlad Guerrero in terms of WAR for first baseman. WAR is wins above replacement. How many wins do you have over a replacement level player? Vladimir Guerrero's WAR amongst qualifying first basemen were 5th out of 12 at 2.8, or fifth out of 12 qualifying AL first baseman. Right in the middle of the pack at 2.8. The people that were better, some of his counterparts here: Jose Abreu, Luis Arias, Nathaniel Lowe, and DJ LeMahieu of the Yankees were all better at him at WAR. Now, WAR isn't necessarily the end all be all of statistics, because, you know, obviously that's kind of it's kind of sort of an unreliable statistic. I want to look at overall offense. When you look at weighted runs created plus, Jose Abreu is at 137, Nathaniel Lowe is at 143, and then you look at Vladimir Guerrero Jr., and he's at 132. And then you have Anthony Rizzo also at 132. Nathaniel Lowe had a 302 average, 358 OBP. Looks like that is, well, that was the Jose Abreu leads in average OBP and slugging, or average and OBP. You know, this was kind of a mixed board. I was really surprised. And I think the separation for me here was the weighted runs created plus. Essentially, runs created adjusted for all of the different parks and leagues and stuff that these guys played with. Nathaniel Lowe's isolated power was 191. You know what? I think Nathaniel Lowe struggled at the beginning of the year and really came forward and really established himself really well at the end of the year. And I think Nathaniel Lowe should take this. 143 rated runs created plus compared to Jose Abreu's 137 and Vladimir Guerrero Jr.'s 132 and Anthony Rizzo's 132, on top of also creating a 3 WAR, just 0.2 below Jose Abreu and above the other two. I think he's good enough in all of these other places. He also led all of these candidates in home. Actually, no, he was second in home runs with 27. I don't know. It just seems like overall in total offense, Nathaniel Lowe was a little bit more of the more complete offensive first baseman than Nathaniel Lowe was. On top of it, it was on a Texas team that was headlined by Corey Seager and Marcus Semien. So you could argue that Corey Seager or Marcus Semien allowed Nathaniel Lowe to get better pitches. Nonetheless, you still have to be able to hit the ball. And I think in this case, Nathaniel Lowe should get the Silver Slugger for the AL first baseman. Is it necessarily going to be, is he necessarily going to be the winner? No, I don't think he's going to be the winner. I think it's going to be Vlad Guerrero Jr. just because of the notoriety that Vlad Guerrero Jr. has. And, you know, with all of these, a lot of these awards are popularity contests. So again, out of these 4, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is the most popular. I guess you can argue Anthony Rizzo, but Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is kind of more current. So I would say Vladimir Guerrero Jr. probably wins. I think Nathaniel Lowe should get it though. Moving on to the NL, you have Paul Goldschmidt, Freddie Freeman, Pete Alonso, Matt Olson, and Christian Walker. So I think really this really wasn't a question. I don't think Pete Alonso should have gotten it. Matt Olson wasn't going to get it, and neither was Christian Walker. Christian Walker had a really bad batting average, even though he was in top 5 in homer or something like that. If our resident Diamondbacks fan, Corey Decker, is on there, maybe he can correct me if I'm wrong here. But I think really this was a competition between Paul Goldschmidt and Freddie Freeman, and I was looking at Fangraphs, and it really is a competition here between Freddie Freeman and Paul Goldschmidt. They are first and second in almost every category with NL first baseman. WAR, they're tied. Weighted runs created plus, it's Goldschmidt and Freeman. Isolated power, walk percentage, strikeout percentage. These guys are top of the line everywhere. Freddie Freeman is above in average and OBP, but Paul Goldschmidt had better slugging. Paul Goldschmidt had better homers, more RBIs, stuff like that. So it was really a competition here between Paul Goldschmidt and Freddie Freeman. And this one was a really difficult choice for me because both of these guys have a lot of merit to win this award. And really the only separation here is weighted runs created plus. You have Paul Goldschmidt at 177 and Freddie Freeman at 157. And really, and you can't even say who was most consistent throughout the year, because Freddie Freeman struggled at the beginning of the year. Paul Goldschmidt struggled at the end of the year. But I think just the fact that Paul Goldschmidt was flirting with a Triple Crown for a while, and along with Aaron Judge, was just on fire for most of the year and really a force in that St. Louis Cardinals lineup, I'm going to give the Silver Slugger to Paul Goldschmidt. And I really think that's who's going to win it. I think it's going to be Goldschmidt and then Freeman second. So really quickly, we're going to move to second base. Second base is second base Silver Sluggers are Jose Altuve, Andres Jimenez, Marcus Semien, and DJ LeMahieu. This one, when you look at the statistics, it really is no contest. DJ LeMahieu, of the Yankees, I really don't understand why he's even in this conversation for second base. Marcus Semien struggled at the beginning of the year, turned it on later in the year. I still don't think he did enough. Andres Jimenez had a great season here for the Guardians, but I don't think it was enough to measure up to what Jose Altuve did for the Astros. So this year, Jose Altuve for second baseman, or for the Astros, really, I'm sorry, wrong screen. Second baseman for the Astros. Hold on, uno momento. Where's the league? Oh, there it is. I'm sorry, I got to pull up Jose Altuve's numbers. Jose Altuve, 300 average, 387 OBP with a 533 slugging. He had a 164 weighted runs created plus, which is 24 above the next highest, which is Andres Jimenez at 140. 164, that means he was better than 64% of the league. That is a lot. He's 64% better than the average hitter. 6.6 WAR, which is half a win better than the next guy, which is Andres Jimenez at 6.1. 10.9 walk percentage, really low K percentage, 28 homers, 18 stolen bases. You want to talk about a complete game. And I think at this point, you can't blame trash cans. I remember Bob Costas was saying at the beginning of this postseason, and referring to the Astros, you can't blame trash cans anymore. You just can't, because they're so far away from this scandal now that they're just proving that they're this good, that they're that good. And Jose Altuve, once again, is proving, after kind of a dismal year, a couple of years ago, that he really is just that good of a hitter. I'm going to give this to Jose Altuve. And one thing to highlight, they said that Jose Altuve wasn't going to be stealing bases anymore with kind of some of the injuries that he's had. He's not going to be stealing bases anymore. And he grabbed 18 stolen bases this year in a league where the stolen bases were pretty much dead. We'll see when it comes to the rule changes next, but stolen bases have been dead for the last few years, and he grabbed 18. I think Jose Altuve, in terms of AL second baseman, had the most complete game of all. So I'm going to give it to Jose Altuve. Second baseman, you got Jeff McNeil, Jake Cronenworth, Ketel Marte, Colton Wong, and Brendan Rodgers. McNeil is of the Mets, Cronenworth is of the Padres, Marte is the Diamondbacks, Wong is the Brewers, and Rodgers is the Rockies. Again, this really wasn't that close. I didn't consider Rodgers. I didn't consider Wong. Marte struggled for a lot of the year. Cronenworth had a very good season, but Jeff McNeil, I think in my mind, was consistently good. Consistently. Maybe if Jacob is still there. Oh, Jacob is here. Jacob is saying the Silver Slugger should go to Andres Jimenez, second baseman in the AL. But moving on to the NL here, in my mind, it wasn't even close with these guys. The only one that was sniffing Jeff McNeil was Jake Cronenworth. And Jeff McNeil at this point, weighted runs created plus 143. The next closest is Jake Cronenworth at 110. WAR, Jeff McNeil had a 5.9 WAR. The next closest of the nominees is Jake Cronenworth at 4.2. I mean, he's a whole 1 win, almost 2 wins better. He's a way better batting average, way better OBP, way better slugging, way better runs created plus. Just everything compared to all of these other guys is just way better in terms of Jeff McNeil and second baseman. It's hands down Jeff McNeil in my case. And I think Jeff McNeil might win comeback player of the year, because this guy had a really, really bad season last year, just dismal. And my fantasy teams felt it. And this year I was like, I'm not picking up Jeff McNeil. And then it just so happens that he has another great year. So fantastic. Thanks a lot. But yeah, I think Jacob Moses here will be happy that I'm picking Jeff McNeil for the NL second baseman Silver Sluggers. Let's move on to third base. In the AL, we have Rafael Devers, Jose Ramirez of the Guardians, Alex Bregman of the Astros, and Matt Chapman of the not the Yankees. Matt Chapman is on the Blue Jays, I believe. So again, this one, definitely not Chapman. It was close between Devers and Ramirez. Bregman came on strong, really strong. Then their statistics were really close, but really Jose Ramirez, in my opinion, is not only one of the most underrated players in the league, but I think he's one of the best hitters in the league. Can steal bases, hits for RBIs, hits for power, hits for average. And when you look at it, in my mind, he's just right now, he's the best offensive third baseman that we have. And that says something when you're in a league with Rafael Devers, who is no slouch in himself, but you got to give it to Jose Ramirez. You just got to give it to Jose Ramirez. And then on the other side, on the NL side, you have Manny Machado of the Padres, Nolan Arenado of the Cardinals, Austin Riley of the Braves, and Justin Turner of the Dodgers. Austin Riley, again, another great season, did really well. Don't think he gets Silver Slugger. Justin Turner, definitely not. This was a competition between Manny Machado and Nolan Arenado, and it was really, really close. Both of these guys had tremendous seasons, much to maybe Melvin's dismay here. Melvin of the what's it called? Baseball Cosmos podcast. He doesn't like Nolan Arenado, but it's really close. I mean, Manny Machado has 7.4 WAR, Nolan Arenado has 7.3 WAR. Weighted runs created plus, Manny Machado 152, Nolan Arenado 151. You've got batting average. Machado's at 298, Nolan Arenado 293. You have OBP 366 for Machado, 358 for Nolan Arenado. Slugging 531 for Machado, 533 for Arenado. Machado had a better walk percentage. Machado had a way higher strikeout percentage, but a better BABIP, batting average, balls in play, 337 for Machado, 290 for Nolan Arenado. Let's see. Machado had 2 more homers, had 1 less RBI, but more runs, created more runs. They played in similar games too. It just seems like Manny Machado just barely edges Nolan Arenado on a lot of different offensive categories. I'm giving the Silver Slugger to Manny Machado. But again, that's nothing against Nolan Arenado. Nolan Arenado had a fantastic year this year for the Cardinals. And he's now opting in and going to play for the Cardinals for the remainder of his contract, unless he gets traded. So, we'll see what comes of that as well. But Manny Machado gets my vote for the third baseman Silver Slugger. At shortstop for the AL, you have Bo Bichette of the Blue Jays. You have Xander Bogaerts of the Red Sox, Carlos Correa of the Twins, well, formerly of the Twins now, since he's decided he's going to opt out and become a free agent again, and Corey Seager of the Rangers. Again, this one was tough. This one was hard. Seager struggled at the beginning of the year, so I didn't really look at him. I didn't consider him, because Bo Bichette, Xander Bogaerts, Carlos Correa, all 3 of those guys had great seasons this year, were a little more consistent than Seager when it came to offensive performance. So when you compare those 3, Xander Bogaerts has a higher weighted runs created plus, 134, compared to Bichette at 129 and Corey Seager at 117. But then what really set it apart for me, because all of the other stats, well, except for batting, except for the slash line here. So Bogaerts had way better batting average, way better OBP. Average is 307, OBP is 377. But the thing I think that set it apart for me was Bogaerts is worth almost two wins more at 6.1 than both Seager or Bichette for this season, 4.5 for each. And they all played very similar games. It wasn't like Corey Seager or Bo Bichette played less games. Actually, out of those three, Bogaerts played the least. Bogaerts played 150 games, Seager played 151, and Bichette played 159. So he's worth almost 2 whole wins compared to the other two, on top of having better weighted runs created plus and a better slash line. For those of you that are old school and like the slash line, the average OBP and slugging, I'm giving it to Xander Bogaerts. Xander Bogaerts is the Silver Slugger winner for AL shortstops. NL shortstops, you have Trey Turner of the Dodgers, Willie Adames of the Brewers, Francisco Lindor of the Mets, and Dansby Swanson of the Braves. It definitely wasn't Willie Adames in my mind. Dansby Swanson had a great season, but did not compare to the season that Trey Turner or Francisco Lindor had. And this one was close. And I wanted to give it to Francisco Lindor simply because he was a horse for me on my fantasy teams. It was really nice to see Lindor kind of bounce back from the disappointing first season he had with the Mets. He could very well also be in line for comeback player of the year with Jeff McNeil there. But when you look at it, Francisco Lindor had a better WAR than Trey Turner, almost half a win better. But Trey Turner made up for it in weighted runs created plus. He's 128 compared to Lindor's 127. But Trey Turner had a better batting average. He had a better OBP. He had better slugging. He had more stolen bases. Lindor had 7 more RBIs. Lindor actually had more homers. Let's see. Yeah, it was just really, really, really close. And this one, even now I've made my choice and now I'm kind of going back and forth. Like, I'm not quite sure, base running is better for Turner than Lindor. This one's tough, but I think I'm going to stick with my original thing and I'm going to give it to Trey Turner. As much as I want to give it to Lindor, I got to give it to Trey Turner. I think Trey Turner is just a little bit more of a more complete ball player than Francisco Lindor is. But again, Francisco Lindor had a great season this year. Definitely a candidate for comeback player of the year. So let's move to, after shortstops, we're going to go out to the outfield. So Jacob in the comments is booing me. I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. I gave you Jeff McNeil. I had to take one away somewhere. So we've got in the outfield for AL, we've got Aaron Judge, Julio Rodriguez, Kyle Tucker, Mike Trout, Randy Arozarena, George Springer, Taylor Ward, Anthony Santander, Adolis Garcia, and Teoscar Hernandez. Really, I think Aaron Judge was no question. I don't think any of us can say that Aaron Judge does not deserve to be one of the better, one of the best, if not, in fact, he was the best in my mind, hitting outfielder in either league, let alone just the AL. And in my mind, he's the MVP. As much as the Angels fan in me, it kills me to say that, but he really, in my mind, is the MVP. The other ones were hard. Again, Julio Rodriguez, great. I think he's AL Rookie of the Year. I think he needs to also be recognized, and he needs to get a Silver Slugger award as well. The third one was hard for me. The third one was really hard. There's a lot of good candidates there. I kind of eliminated Kyle Tucker because he struggled at the beginning of the year. I mean, he was really bad at the beginning of the year. And then you have Adolis Garcia, which I really don't think that Adolis Garcia really should have even been in here. I guess he had 27 homers, 250 batting average. It's not bad, but there are other people on here that are better. You have Taylor Ward. That's better. I mean, even I'm seeing Stephen Kwan was even worth more than Adolis Garcia. Kyle Tucker ended up coming back, doing really well. But really, in my mind, I'm sorry, maybe this is just the Angel fan in me, but I had to give it to Mike Trout. I had to give it to Mike Trout because he produced so much for the Angels and he missed 40 games of the season. He hit 40 homers. And to me, I mean, he's just produced more than in my mind, he's produced more than anybody could have given his circumstances. I mean, he has a 176 weighted runs created plus in 40 less games than anybody else that's on the list. He's worth 6 WAR. 6 WAR in any other year, in any other full season is a great season, right? I mean, he's only second to Yordan Alvarez, or he's only third to Aaron Judge, who had 11.4 WAR, and then Yordan Alvarez 6.6, but he's not eligible for the outfield. And then Mike Trout is third with 6. It's just, to me, it's mind-boggling, and you have to recognize him for it. Even though he played 40 less games than anybody else, I'm giving it to Mike Trout. I got to give it to Mike Trout. To me, it's just, I couldn't give it to anybody else on that list. And then for the NL, you've got Mookie Betts, Kyle Schwarber, Juan Soto, Starling Marte, Jock Peterson, Michael Harris, Brian Reynolds, Hunter Renfroe, and Brandon Nimmo. Mookie Betts, another great season. Can't really fault him for that. I gotta give one to him. Kyle Schwarber led the NL in home runs, but again, we're not looking for just the best home run hitter. We're looking for the best offensive player overall. And I don't think that Kyle Schwarber in this case was the best offensive player overall. I think there were other guys that were better overall offensive players. Juan Soto really struggled after he came over to the Padres at the trade deadline. Again, I'm not giving it to Juan Soto. Starling Marte had a great season, but other people had better seasons. Jock Peterson, again, great season. Other people had better seasons. I'll just tell you who I'm giving it to. Michael Harris. So this is the second rookie now that is going to get a Silver Slugger from me. Michael Harris of the Braves. Really great offensive season, great debut for him. And I think maybe Jacob will not be as mad at me for this. I'm also giving it to Brandon Nimmo. Brandon Nimmo, great season. He's a very underrated hitter. And I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the fact that there are other Mets on the team now. And, there are other stars and they don't necessarily get the focus, or you've got, I don't know, maybe it's the injuries. Maybe he hasn't been there in a while, but Brandon Nimmo this year, 274 batting average, 367 OBP, 433 slugging, 134 weighted runs created plus. He's third in National League outfielders behind Mookie Betts and McNeil in WAR. He's at a 5.4 WAR, a great walk percentage, 10.5%, 17.2% K percentage, great BABIP, a 317 BABIP. Really, in my mind, Brandon Nimmo is right there. And then you have Michael Harris right behind him in all of that stuff. In my mind, it's Mookie Betts, Brandon Nimmo, Michael Harris for the outfield Silver Sluggers. We're almost done. Let's get to the catchers. The AL catchers, you have Alejandro Kirk, Sean Murphy, Cal Relay, Adley Rutschman, Salvador Perez, and Martin Maldonado. Really, Sean Murphy, I didn't see that. Adley Rutschman, I was really close to giving it to Adley Rutschman, but this other guy just edged him out. Salvador Perez struggled at the beginning of the year. Martin Maldonado, I mean, come on. Martin Maldonado is not an offensive catcher. He's a defensive catcher. Why is he even here? I don't understand that. Cal Relay, very clutch, not a Silver Slugger in my opinion. I am giving it to Alejandro Kirk. Alejandro Kirk had a very, very, very good offensive season this year. Getting an all-star nod, being really, along with Danny Jansen, being that guy. And I think in my mind, really what separated him from the others was just the fact that he played more games. 139 games. And I know some of that is probably DH as opposed to catcher, because you had to get Danny Jansen in there as well. Adley Rutschman played 113. And again, that's not fair because he got pulled up later in the year. But I don't know. My personal feeling, I'm giving it to Alejandro Kirk. You could definitely argue for Adley Rutschman, though. I was really, really close to giving it to Adley Rutschman, and you could very well make a case, and he could very well win the Silver Slugger for AL catcher, but I'm giving it to Alejandro Kirk of the Blue Jays. When you go to catcher for the NL, you have Will Smith of the Dodgers, JT Realmuto of the Phillies, Wilson Contreras of the Cubs, and Travis d'Arnaud of the Braves. In my mind, this was really no contest. Will Smith had a good season, not a great season. Wilson Contreras is a good offensive catcher, but no. And Travis d'Arnaud, again, didn't measure up. JT Realmuto is still, in my mind, the best offensive catcher in the NL, and maybe one of the best offensive catchers in the league in particular. In 139 games, he had 128 weighted runs created plus. He was worth the 6, and the separator for me, 6.5 WAR compared to the next best catcher in the NL is Will Smith at 3.9. He's worth almost 3 whole wins more than any other catcher in the NL. You got to give it to JT Realmuto. It's just, for me, it's no question. DH. ALDH, you have Shohei Ohtani, Yordan Alvarez, Giancarlo Stanton, George Springer, and Adolis Garcia. I mean, this one, it's got to be either Ohtani or Alvarez, and Alvarez just hit out of his ever-loving mind this year. This one's tough. I'm giving it to Alvarez. You could make a case for Ohtani as well, but I mean, in this case, Yordan Alvarez, I think in my mind, he had a better offensive season than Ohtani. I really think he did. You've got, I keep clicking on the wrong screen. You've got Yordan Alvarez, who, in my mind, if it weren't for Judge, he would be right there. You've got Yordan Alvarez is worth 6.6 WAR this season. Shohei Ohtani is worth 3.8 WAR. And Shohei Ohtani played in more games. He hit in more games, I think, than Yordan Alvarez did. Yordan Alvarez, 185 weighted runs created plus. Shohei Ohtani, 142 weighted runs created plus. Great season, but Yordan Alvarez is better. The slash line, Yordan Alvarez's slash line, 306, 406, 613. Shohei Ohtani's 273, 356, 519. Way better slash line. More homers, more RBIs. My mind, it's Yordan Alvarez, and I'm not going to lie, it's no question. Better walk percentage, better strikeout percentage. Just every single offensive statistic, when you put Yordan Alvarez next to Shohei Ohtani, it's going to be Yordan Alvarez, and I hope he wins it. And I hope this doesn't turn into a popularity contest and Shohei Ohtani wins it. I think it's Yordan Alvarez in my mind. And then designated hitter for the NL, you have Josh Bell, Albert Pujols being nominated, which was a really cool thing to see. Luke Voigt, which I thought was weird. Justin Turner, Charlie Blackmon, and Bryce Harper. I mean, I would have given it to Josh Bell. Josh Bell had a pretty good season this year, except when he came over, he kind of struggled with the Padres. And the rest of these guys, Albert Pujols had a great season. He may win it just because it's his last season, but in my mind, it's got to be Bryce Harper. Bryce Harper had a great season. Yeah, he was out, but out of these DHs, I got to give it to Bryce Harper. Bryce Harper had a great season this year. And finally, the utility. This is a new category, along with NL designated hitter. They are now giving Silver Sluggers to utility players, which I think is great because there's a growing number of utility players out there, and they need to be recognized as well. So in terms of utility, you have Luis Arias, Shohei Ohtani, DJ LeMahieu, Luis Rengifo, and 2 Angels. It was really cool to see 2 Angels on there. Again, in my mind, this was a battle between Arias and Ohtani. And again, Ohtani has a bit more of a complete offensive package. He has more power. Luis Arias will definitely hit for average, but Shohei Ohtani has more power, and on top of it, also hits for a higher average than the average baseball player. This one I will give to Shohei Ohtani. Even if the utility is his utility is he pitches and he hits, he pitches and he DHs. He still does both. In my mind, he does qualify under the utility category, and I'm giving it to Shohei Ohtani. In terms of the NL, you have Brandon Drury, you have Tommy Edman, you have Thairo Estrada, and you have Chris Taylor, and Jeff McNeil. This one was tough. I kind of wanted to give 2 to Jeff McNeil, but I also thought that was kind of messed up to give 2 to him. So I'm just going to disqualify Jeff McNeil in this case. Chris Taylor kind of battled some injuries this year. Tommy Edman, great stolen base. He had a great start to the season, but kind of fell off in terms of power. Brandon Drury came on later in the season, and I think he's just a little bit better than Tommy Edman. So I'm going to give that Silver Slugger to Brandon Drury. And next, so that's the Silver Sluggers. We're going to go to the Hank Aaron Awards really quick. So the Hank Aaron Awards are the best offensive player overall. I'm going to go, so I'm going to list them really quick. I thought I had them. There they are. And for the AL, you have Rafael Devers, Jose Ramirez of the Guardians, Jose Altuve of the Astros, Yordan Alvarez of the Astros, Shohei Ohtani of the Angels, Mike Trout of the Angels, Aaron Judge of the Yankees, Julio Rodriguez of the Mariners, Austin Riley of the Braves. And I think in this case, it's no question. You got to give it to Aaron Judge. You can't give it to anybody else. He hit out of his mind this year. You can't really say anything else. Hank Aaron Award for the NL. You have Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, Pete Alonso, Kyle Schwarber, Nolan Arenado, Paul Goldschmidt, and Manny Machado. This one was tough. This one was really hard because there are so many deserving candidates for this, but I think in this case, I'm going to give it to Paul Goldschmidt. Had just a fantastic season. He sputtered at the end of the season, but you know what? I think the rest of his season was just that good that's just how that's going to work for him. And in the essence of time, I'm not going to go over the Gold Glove Awards. We'll go over the Gold Glove Awards later in the year, because I want to talk about the World Series. First of all, the game last night was a fantastic game. I couldn't have asked for a better World Series game one. You had Astros doing the Astros thing. They were up 5-0, going into the middle innings, and the Phillies, they lived up to their name. They battled back, and they battled back against a tough pitcher in Justin Verlander, who honestly has not had a lot of World Series success. He's still 0 for 6, has a ERA above 5 in the World Series, still has yet to win a playoff game. He just, for whatever reason, he doesn't perform well when it comes to that, when it comes to the World Series. And it's really interesting to see. Going into it, I would have said that the Houston Astros had this hands down. The Houston Astros on paper are a better team than the Philadelphia Phillies. They've got better bullpen. They've got a better offensive lineup. They got a better rotation. They've got, everything seems you would check the box off for the Astros, but the Phillies have something in them when it comes to their scrappiness. And as a former player myself, really the scrappiness of a team can really go a long way. If you're not as good of a team, but you're scrappy, it really boosts the performance of your team. And I don't know, there's something about the Phillies that it seems like they're just going to make this difficult for the Astros. In terms of offense, the Phillies had better offense. They scored more runs than the Astros did through the playoffs. But in my mind, the Phillies played a little bit easier teams in my mind than the Astros did. The Astros kind of had to go through the gauntlet. The Yankees collapse as the Yankees collapse, but let's put respect where respect is due here. The Yankees were a very tough team, and they had a formidable offense. They had a formidable, they had a good pitching staff, decent bullpen, And, they didn't get there on accident. They did a really good job this season, had a really good, and they just collapsed at the end of the year. And Phillies played the Padres, who were a really tough team, but took care of them. Seattle for Houston. In my mind, Seattle gave Houston a run for their money, whereas Philly played Atlanta, who just fell flat at the playoffs. So, Phillies had a better offense. The Astros have way better pitching. Good pitching always beats good hitting, but then at the same time, you have somebody like Justin Verlander who doesn't really perform well on the World Series stage, and then you have key hitters like Jose Altuve, who, for whatever reason, it seems like he has a very hard time performing in hostile environments, and he's slumping in the postseason right now. You have Yordan Alvarez, who's not quite the Yordan Alvarez that he was in this season. You have Alex Bregman, who's actually performing really well. Jeremy Pena stepping up. And then you have on the offensive side, you have Nola and Wheeler. You have Sir Anthony Dominguez at the back end of that bullpen. You have Bryce Harper, who, in my mind, Bryce Harper became a Phillies legend with that homer to send him into the World Series. That's what they signed him up for. That's what they signed him. That's why they signed him that multi-year, multi-million-dollar contract for, is to do stuff like that in the postseason. Rhys Hoskins done really well this postseason. JT Realmuto, we saw it last night. He's producing as well. Great job behind the plate. There's something about the Phillies that is just it's going to make it difficult for the Astros, but the Astros are just too good. It's really hard to bet against the Astros. I think it sounded like I was building up to picking that the Astros were going to lose in the World Series, but I'm going to give it to the Astros. And I think I'm going to give it to the Astros in 6. I'm going to stick by my prediction in that the Astros will win, but I think it will take them a little bit longer to win. I wouldn't be surprised to see it go 6-7 games. I think it's going to be a great World Series. I'm excited to see it. And get ready for game 2 here coming up in a couple hours here. Oh, we've got a prediction in the comments here. Jacob says Phillies in 5. That's bold. My man. Phillies in 5. Not only are the Phillies going to win, but they're only going to let them win one game. That's interesting. All right, I'll take that. You heard it here. You heard it here on the podcast. Jacob Moses, step back host. Phillies in 5. I believe Felipe has the Astros winning too. I could be wrong. But I definitely have the Astros winning. Interesting. If you want to talk about the World Series, or you want to leave your World Series prediction, go ahead and join us at the Baseball Life Facebook group, where you could talk with me, you could talk with Felipe, you could talk with Jacob, you could talk with all kinds of people, all kinds of baseball. We have great baseball discussions. I can't say anything bad about this group, really. It's a great group. And this has been the Total Bases Express show. It's running a little bit longer than normal, but this has been the Total Bases Express show. Thank you for listening. And you can find us on Spotify. You can find us on Stitcher. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on anywhere you listen to your podcast. You're probably going to find us. And tune in tomorrow morning for Felipe and Sean to talk about the World Series on the Total Bases podcast. And until next week, I am your host, Austin Spiro. And until next time, have a good one, everybody.